Now, the Vice President says the combination of prudent macro and microeconomic policies and programs implemented by government over the last 3 years has strengthened the economy. Dr. Bawumia said the change in the country's fortunes, he said, has been acknowledged by the international bodies. He was addressing participants at the ongoing government town hall and results fair in the Ashanti regional capital of Kumasi on Tuesday. Using a combination of graphs, tables and texts, Vice President Bawumia provided evidence to buttress his claim that the Akuffo-Addo administration had largely delivered on its manifesto promises, especially on the economy. Here are excerpts of what he said on the cedi's depreciation and the banking sector cleanup.
How has the cedi performed under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo-Addo in the last 3 years? The answer is very simple. You look at this table, which looks at the average rate of depreciation of the cedi since 1992. Between 1993 and 1996, first term of the Fourth Republic, the average rate of depreciation of the cedi was 27.95%. 97 to 2000, 25.19%. 2001 to 2004, we drastically reduced it under President Kufuor to 11.4%, and 2005 to 2008, the second term, to 6.7%. 2009 to 2012, 10.9%. Under the NDC government of 2013 to 2016, it was 18%. Under Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo-Addo, it is, for the first 3 years, 8.7%. So, you see from this table that the cedi exchange rate under the MPP from 2017 to 2019 is twice as stable as it was under the NDC from 2013 to 2016. I, as an opposition member, said, looking at the data, 8 banks will collapse. You need to do something about this. But they did nothing. They refused to act. Thanks to the Bank of Ghana's cleanup exercise and the government's decision to step in to provide financial support to ensure an orderly exit of the failed institutions, over 1 million depositors have had access to their deposits already, and over 7,000 jobs have been saved as a result of employees who have been taken on by the GCB or Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited or the receivers. Employees whose salaries and employee benefits had been unpaid by the defunct institutions have been paid or are being paid by receivers. Can you imagine what would have happened in this country if 4.6 million depositors had lost their deposits? The benefits of the banking sector cleanup exercise are evident for all to see. I find the NDC's newfound care for indigenous firms quite baffling, given the number of indigenous firms that collapsed under 4 years of doomsday under their government. Why didn't their government bail those firms out? A lot of these banks were engaged in fraudulent practices and poor corporate governance, and the licenses, some of the licenses were obtained fraudulently. And therefore, the Bank of Ghana had to take action against them. We cannot say simply because you are indigenous banks, we should allow you to collapse the entire banking system. Nobody takes any pleasure in revoking a license of any institution. It must be a painful exercise. And I'm sure the Bank of Ghana, took its time in doing this. Government has already spent over 13 billion. This is unplanned. We had not budgeted for it. 13 billion Ghana cedis paying depositors of banks and other financial institutions. No depositor of a savings and loan or a microfinance institution will lose any of their deposits, not even 1 peso. No depositor. So we are therefore cleaning up the mess. We are cleaning up the mess the NDC created in the financial sector. The NDC was unable to do it. They were aware of the problem, but they refused to act. Given their management of the economy, they could not find the money even to pay teacher training allowance or nursing training allowance. Where would they have found 13 billion Ghana cedis to pay to depositors to rescue them from the collapse of the banks?
And that's Dr. Bawumia speaking yesterday. Joining me is Professor Godfrey Wakping. He's an economist and professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. He joins me live on the phone for a conversation. Good morning to you, Prof. First of all, what's your reaction, initial reaction to the issues addressed there by the Vice President? Hello, Professor Wakping, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now. Good morning, and good morning to our cherished viewers.
Great. I'm asking for your initial reaction to those comments by the Vice President.
I think that largely one can associate with the comments of the Vice President. I think it is common knowledge that what happened in the financial sector cannot be said that it was entirely the creation of the MPP. I believe that the vulnerabilities in the financial sector started showing up towards the end of 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, 15, down the line. The energy crisis that also eroded the balance sheet of the real sector also affected the ability of firms to service their loans. So non-performing loans started heading up. Okay, then again, government arrears that were not cleared on time in terms of a certain level of state-sponsored non-performing loans in Ghana's banking sector. So, and you can see from the data from Ghana Statistical Service that the performance of the financial and the insurance sector actually started dipping from, I think 2015, 2016, it went down, it went to negative 2017, of course. The bailout essentially started from there. So to that extent, we will say that the Vice President is largely consistent with the reality. Of course, government can take credit for taking the effort to clean up, but the real effect of that cleanup, for which government is taking credit, is the fact that the public is going to pay for that. The effect of that is already loaded onto our debt stock. So we are talking about 15.4 billion cedis that have been spent so far, that is added to the debt stock, which is also translating to high interest payments, reflecting in the 2020 budget, where the government is setting aside approximately 22 billion cedis just for interest payments on our debt. And this is crowding out priority spending. So to the extent that state institutions failed us, we failed ourselves, particularly from Bank of Ghana. And the Vice President was right when he talked about the way some banks received their licenses and all of that. Okay, so Bank of Ghana owes us a lot of explanation. The role they played, acting for the public interest, is very, very important. The effect of that is that we are spending so much to clean up our own mess. And we have had to get ourselves into this situation. Yeah, that is what I would say. And even the cleanup, we are not done yet. Even though the Vice President is talking about how much we have spent and how many people have been paid and all of that, people are still having challenges assessing their funds.
And Prof, when he says every depositor will be paid, every city owed them, is that realistic?
Well, it's an election year, and that assurance serves the government well to calm tempers. The question is when, how, what are the roadmaps? When would people be expecting to get that? If we say towards the end of this year, would it happen before the election happens? Or afterwards, what happens? So it's going to be a challenge because the government doesn't have the fiscal space. The government doesn't. Even if you look at what government has done so far, the energy sector and then the financial sector, right, already have been the reason why government could not achieve its fiscal deficit target for 2019. Government said they did 4.9, 4.7. If you add the financial sector bailout, when you add the energy sector intervention, the fiscal deficit is around 7.1% of GDP. That is far more than what the cap, which is 5% or less, in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So the effect is already real.
And I want to quote something from the Vice President, and this is on the city. So he says, President Akuffo-Addo has the best performance for any first-term government since 1992. All the worst performances happened under the NDC, which holds the record for first, second, and third worst performances in the Fourth Republic. But they still want to challenge the best performer. I mean, you are a professor of economics. What's the truth in this?
I think, well, the data suggests largely. You can go into whether the merit of it, whether it's a good comparison, whether we should not be comparing ourselves to our potential, where we should be, and whether the past is a better benchmark for looking into the future. Or maybe we want to look at our peers, we want to look at our potential. But if you want to go strictly by regime comparison, you cannot take any much away from the Vice President and what he said. The data is there for you to check for yourself.
But is it not an accumulation of something that perhaps was started earlier? Could it just be within this 3-year period?
Well, to some extent, you can say that there are structural issues that haven't been dealt with since 1992, as the Vice President used as his baseline for comparison. And it doesn't look to me that this current government, even though in terms of economic management, things have turned for good to some extent, not exactly where we should be, but I don't think that structurally government has done enough to be able to anchor these gains for the foreseeable future. There are real risks. The resilience of the economy is still very weak and very susceptible to shocks, either from commodity side, from revenue side, or from any other macro variable.
So, Prof, when he says they've arrested the rapid depreciation of the city, is that true?
Well, if they have arrested it, for how long? I think that they have been able to stem the tide to some extent. If you look at the rate of depreciation within their term, if you look at it over the past 3 years or so, you will see that the depreciation over that period is slightly moderated. But that is not where we should be actually. So the question is how long? And I think the essence of leadership and management is that even when you are not there, things should not take a reverse necessarily. So the government should be looking at putting in place the necessary structural reforms, institutional reforms, bundle them together, make sure that they are reinforcing the consistency to ensure that the gains that we are making now are sustained, because we have been there before. Okay, we have had periods, not that long though, where inflation had been single digits, even under President Mills and all of that, okay, with the introduction of oil and all of that. But we could not sustain that. We've seen periods under the NPP between 2003, 2004, 2005, we saw some gains. But go to the data and see, by the end of 2007, vulnerabilities have started showing up under the supervision of the NPP. When we were going into the 2008 elections, it was all over. So it tells you that government make the effort, but it's not durable. It's not durable. This is Ghana's problem. Under the Fourth Republic, we have seen fiscal discipline and prudent monetary policy only in between elections. Okay? And so sustainability is a key issue.
And one wonders, especially because this is an election year, if we'll be able to sustain the gains.
This is my prayer. And I believe that as the Vice President is talking, as the President is talking, they are putting their integrity on the line. this year we have to be able to walk our talk and talk our walk. We have to be able to keep to fiscal discipline. If we can do so, then we'll be able to build on the gains that we have made. And that is the only way that those gains will be entrenched and become more beneficial for the common good.
Will the fiscal sustainability law help?
Well, we have had laws in the past, but not in this form and this manner. But as we all know in this country, our problem hasn't been the absence of laws. Our laws are observed more in breach than in compliance. The extent to which we are able to enforce our own laws and hold ourselves accountable to the law is a problem. And we always find a way around the law. I just gave you an instance, right? We talked about Fiscal Responsibility Act that capped the fiscal deficit at 5%. Is it not true? You know that 2019 they did almost 7%. Their explanation is that there were two outliers: the financial sector bailout, which they are treating as an outlier, and then the energy sector development, which they are treating as outlier. If you add all of this together, then the deficit is more than what is in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Okay, so we always find a way around the law. But I think the law only sets the minimum. We cannot look to the law alone to hold our fiscal discipline and all of that. We need good people with good intention leading the law. Beyond that, we need ethical leadership. We need men and women with high integrity to lead. It is insufficient to talk about institutions without talking about credible people leading those institutions as well. It's important. So it's early days yet, and we have seen that before. Because the first quarter of every competitive election, you hear all government, like the former president also did in 2016, okay? We will not overspend. They said all of that. President Mills, they said all of that. President Akuffo-Addo, they said all of that. 2008, we heard all of that. But you can check the excesses. You can check the excesses, the political business cycle. You can check that 2000. You can check that the 2004 was an exception. You can check that for 2008. You can check that for 2012. You can check that for 2016. Okay, so the real test comes in the last quarter of the year. In the last quarter of the year in this country, nobody manages anything. We leave the economy to itself, and politicians are after votes. When the pressure mounts, the peak period, when the political temperature is at the tipping point, and that is where the challenge of keeping to physical discipline will be tested.
Great. One more soundbite from the Vice President, and I'll take your quick reaction before we wrap up.
Formed the NDC in virtually every sphere of the economy. I mean, every sphere. We have appropriately combined economic theory as taught in our textbooks with the collective experience of the economic management team and cabinet under the leadership of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo-Addo, in the management of the economy. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant who, after qualifying, decides not to use what they learned in school? Say, forget about everything you learned in the textbooks when you are actually practicing. Can you imagine that? Unfortunately, if you don't take your time and read and understand your textbooks in a subject like economics, you will end up mismanaging the economy with a confirmed economic management techniques. I have no doubt.
The NPP, it looks like, understand economics and they apply the text when they're in power better than the NDC. Is it true, Prof, that they've outperformed the NDC in every sphere of Ghana's economy?
I wish you would let this cat pass me. But, okay, so look at this way. When you examine the NPP when they were in opposition, that period also, because they spent time putting their knowledge to test in terms of analyzing the economy, the various presentations that they did, they created the impression that they knew what was wrong with the economy. They created the impression that they had what it would take to arrest that. I think getting power, the ability to translate that into actual has not been well synchronized. It's common knowledge. Largely also because, if you are in opposition, you can hold things constant when you are explaining a point. But when you are in government, the reality dawns on you. You cannot hold anything constant. So there are several dynamics, some unanticipated, emerging issues, and all of that. All these things come together. So I think when you look at it purely from the macro data, hello?
Yes, Prof, I'm listening.
I'm trying to avoid the politics of it. When you look at it
and
from
I appreciate
the
that.
available data on the economy, and if you want to say that what the MPP has done in the last 3 years or so is because of superior knowledge, maybe you cannot take that away from them. I believe that if these records had favored the NDC, maybe they would have also gone in the same line.
Okay.
And all of that. So we can't also say that, it doesn't serve me well to say that theory is not relevant. Then what are we doing here in the university? What are we teaching here and all of that? So a certain level of appreciation of the theoretical literature is also good.
Okay.
You need to understand things from that perspective.
All right.
Beyond that, I think you have to also have the wisdom and work with people, work with the system to be able to translate that into actual. And
Okay.
I think the problem we have right now, and my advice to government, my humble advice to government would be that they need to lift the veil, which is a macro veil, and connect with the ordinary Ghanaian on the street and see how we will be able to make sure that these macro level gains, short-term though, are entrenched to the extent that it benefit the ordinary Ghanaian.
Okay.
I think that is the whole essence of governance and management as well. That it doesn't benefit just a tiny few, but it's broad-based and inclusive enough to carry along a majority of the people.
I thank you for your time, Professor Bokping. He's an economist and professor of finance. Still to come here on News Desk, we will hear from the ghetto economists on, how this is reflecting. Stay with us. Now, following the Vice President town hall yesterday, a self-styled ghetto minister has put together what he calls the real state of the economy. Watch, you may just identify with that. After which Darrell Kwao brings us business.
Bawumia yaba ghetto minister na make say you bet check Bawumia the rare economy. The rare economy. Munche nyamo ogwe. Sisia shepano 2 cities. Shanobo Bawumia the rare economy na yeche ono. Bawumia obia the president to in this batch. Eyo 1 city 20 pesos. Bawumia weigh 5 cities 50 pesos.
Only dollar near back.
Only dollar no your back. Bawumia dokuwe 1 city 50 pesos. 15. Bawumia chinam 2 cities. Bawumia ya pade ya chow the real economy. Enye data na adina keji na wana keka no. Bawumia no de ni mishi abon. This is the real economy. Chinam 2 cities. Bawumia chinam 2 cities. Bawumia enkadakun 15. Eyi the organ obi adidi. Bawumia this is the real economy. She similar way. Yimnabo obi adi similar go na ba na pa. Oye 40 cities 50 pesos. Bawumia obi akotole tonye. Eyi oye 1 city 20 pesos. Adia na waton 6 cities 60 pesos. Adia waton is 60 pesos. Wabredo waton 1 city 20 pesos. Bawumia eyi na waton 2 cities. Wabredo na waton 2 cities. Wabredo oye 4 cities 20 pesos. Bawumia bibia po yaw. Ade kubi oye yaw. Shapitation ya no. Sisia womu 50 pesos 1 city ni. Bawumia inti share